Hi, and welcome to Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever. I'm Rabbi David Katz, and you are listening to Parashas Shemot. The name of the article is The Messiah's Women's Club, by yours truly, Rabbi David Katz. All right, everyone read the article. It was posted in time, and we got delayed for travels around the world during this week. So here we are on Thursday, and everything should be back to normal in the week to come. The system is, as always, Haftorah, Zohar, and insights to the Parsha based on the article itself. Okay, just to let kind of a cat out of the bag, so to speak, if I were to summarize the entire Parsha into 2 words, and that encapsulates basically everything, I would say it's Peh Moshe, the mouth of Moses. That is what everything is about in this week's Parsha. Now we're going to get into how that works in the article, but in the meantime, we go into the Haftorah, and when you read through, you see this week the way the Haftorah works in conjunction with the Parsha. A couple of things really strike me, hot. The idea of being weaned off of mother's milk. I mean, that's Moses 101. The idea of Moses and mother's milk is that Moses' mouth, they say, was pure. He had only drank from his mother's breast, the mouth that would eventually talk to God. Now keep that in mind. That's going to be a big issue here. And the idea is that, that Moses never drank unkosher or ate unkosher. Also, all through the Haftorah is yayin, the concept of wine. And there's a lot of allusion to the mouth of Moses, so to speak. And Hashem continues saying how he placed the words in the proverbial mouth. And a lot of this, what we just said, is very abstract, probably doesn't mean very much. But hopefully, by the time we're done with the article, it'll make a lot of sense. And I'll go ahead and again let another cat out of the bag that will allow us to understand a major issue here. And we're going to build on these themes. No worries. The main point of the article is the circumcision to Moses' son by his wife Zipporah. And particularly in the issue, in a vague passage in the Parsha, after she circumcises, the verse claims in a very weird fashion, again, what are we talking about? We don't know. And it reached to his feet. You guys remember seeing this? All right, Zipporah gives the bris milah, the circumcision, and so all of a sudden, and she said, this blood is of my husband, is from you, and she reached it to his feet. Anybody else bothered by this? Reach what? Why feet? What reached the feet? What? It's a big question. And I've probably never seen more shtusim in my life than I've seen on this part this week by asking this question. I have learned about the idolatrous practices of Egypt, how apparently it is a custom to place foreskins upon people's feet. I guarantee you that has never been documented in the history of mankind. Yet, when we want to answer verses in the Torah, we become experts on Egyptian avodah zarah. I don't buy it. I really don't. And when we get into the Midrash and we see exactly why she did, it's a surprising answer, but it's far from the shtusim that goes around on this verse. With that said, Moses is then the culprit for not circumcising. And as we know, he should have done the circumcision on his kid. And Zipporah ended up doing it. Now, let me explain. This is going to be one of the classes that there's a lot of information, and it's going to be thrown out in random places. Because there really is no linear flow here. This article, there is no flow. Other than, let's say, righteous women, ger women help usher redemption. Other than that, it's a circular array of knowledge. And the parsha contains that circle. So you have, let's say, the Batia, daughter of Pharaoh chamber, and what she represents to that. And then you have Yocheved, Moses' mom. Then you have Zipporah, who marries Moses. Then you have Miriam, the sister of Moses. And you have a lot of messianic undertones which resonates with David and Ruth. And you have women in general and giving birth and amazing midwives. And you have Moses speaking before Pharaoh and he's the Redeemer. Right? We know that. We really do. But what we want to do is see how do all of these individual worlds combine to make Moses' world shine. Now, Moses is such a great character, he shines regardless. I don't think any of you had a boring time reading the Parsha. I mean, this is Moses' Parsha. He's not the Redeemer yet, and he's pretty entertaining. Not that he's an entertainer, but, I mean, there's a lot of things going on with Moses. The language is rich. The concepts are rich. It's a rich Parsha. And the irony is, it gets even better when you bring in the women. There's not much going on with men. Aaron is kind of insulting because he's a great man, and yet we don't know anything about him. I don't know about you, but I would love to know more about Aaron. What's going on in his world? He looks pretty boring in our Parsha. But we know he's not. Maybe Amram too, their father. But the women, the Torah has no modesty in terms of holding back their greatness. Batia shines to the occasion. So does Yocheved. So does Miriam. And so does Zipporah. And we're going to say that Zipporah shines the brightest. And it shouldn't be an accident. She gets the most flack out of everybody. The most misunderstood. So again, each little world is going to require knowledge. You're not going to get this unless you understand each world. So, and every world contains a world. You really are going to need to research or at least understand each topic. Because that's what makes this thing go. How many people even know who Batia, daughter of Pharaoh, and Zipporah, and Yocheved, and Miriam are? How many of you know what a bris milah circumcision ritual is? What is contained in it? What is the concept of Moses the Redeemer? What is a prophet? What is a wise man? All the concepts in the article need to be understood. I'm going to bring them in, but don't be afraid to look about it. It's all easily researched. Don't be intimidated by the lack of knowledge needed. Consider it a research project. Step 1. What is a ritual circumcision? We know what the cutting is. And the fact there's 2 stages of that cutting called Mila and Priya is not in the basis of this discussion. What is important to say, way back in the day, they would boil water and make it hot. Not boiling hot by the time of the ceremony. But they would put the baby in the water to ease up the skin. We don't do that anymore. And I'll bring a story to tell you how I know that, based on why we're bringing it in the article. There's the cutting, and then there's another thing called metzitza, where you draw the blood orally for sterilization. And then you swish with a Kiddush cup wine. You make the blessings, the baby gets named, and you have a member of the covenant. And me as a young yeshiva bacher, I'm saying, Rabbi, can we do away with mitzitza? I mean, if we got rid of the bath, why don't we be a little more civilized and get rid of the mitzitza, which means to draw or suck out. Let's get rid of that, keep the bath, and we're good to go. They said, I don't know why. But in the end, we did get rid of the bath, and we kept mitzitza and the cutting. And it's a little interesting, kind of thing you see on a liberal CNN episode. And years ago, I thought of a good answer why. On Shabbos, you can break Shabbos for a bris. And even if there's a tsarat, we know what tsarat is, all you Naaman lovers out there, which tells you it's a ger thing already. When there's tsarat on the limb, you can cut it off by the manner of the circumcision. Otherwise, because on Shabbos, you can't generally do that. So on Shabbos, you can break Shabbos by the boiling of the water. But you're not supposed to break Shabbos except for the most essential ways possible. So if you don't need the water, don't break Shabbos. In the end, it was not an essential part of the ritual. But you want to make sure there's wine there for Kiddush. Because without the wine, the blessing doesn't go up. So how do you make sure you're always going to have wine? If you have mitzitza as part of the ritual, you're going to bring wine because that's part of the sterilization. So the ritual actually contains like a travel unit, right? Minimal requirement. One thing leads to the next, like good engineering. In circumcision, it's one of those things that's been done in what's called shas hadachak, a moment's notice. You might be hanging out from the Romans in a cave. Wife gives birth, you need to circumcise. Well, you're not going to be having a big kiddush in the shul. So you need to know what to do, bam, 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 to get it done, and move on with life. And this has been going on, the sacrificing of soul and self to get the job done. Just look at the tribe of Levi. All right, that's the background of circumcision. Now you have Moses as the culprit, as why he didn't do the circumcising. And look, what is circumcision? It's a nude baby, and there's wine involved. The baby's without clothes, and it has to do with that part. Now, why do I mention that? Moses is the culprit. Moses is a reincarnation of Noah. What was Noah's big sin? Debasing himself with wine. They say it was over the matter of having potentially fathering 12 tribes. Or a fourth son after Ham. Now Noah, let's say you have the ingredients. He gets the ingredients wrong. He removes his clothes and gets debased over wine. He didn't get it right. Moses comes one step closer. And he takes the ingredients and he still doesn't get it right. In the final redemption, we will get it right. Now this word for naked, arum. The snake in the Garden of Eden was called arum. But under that definition, it's cunning. So when naked and cunning will be rectified, i.e. the nachash, the snake, the evil inclination. The wine of the 6 days of creation in Garden of Eden. The bris milah. What does brit mean? Covenant. What does milah mean? It can mean cutting, or it can also mean word. The covenant of the word. Which can also mean the covenant of a name. When you take the gematria Shem and Aver, It's the gematria Brit. And Shem and Aver means Hebrew name. Hebrew name, covenant of a name. The name is what empowers. Beyond the Yetzer Hara, evil inclination, cunning, the snake. Make a long story short, Moses and his name falls short of the circumcision of his son. And Zipporah, whose name contains Sur and Peh, the rock in the mouth. She cuts with the rock, and as the Aramaic says, she leans in to make the ritual, saying, as she's leaning in to do the act, saying, this is the blood of my husband, blah, 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 and the ritual's done on a minuscule level. But she got the job done, like a real warrior woman. Imagine that situation. Now, I know I didn't give all the background. It's by the end of this article, it will all be clear by the end of this class. Moses tarries in circumcising his son. He falls victim to an anger attack, and there's words exchanged between Zipporah. Zipporah recognizes the Mazal. She understands that there was an emphasis on these parts, and she understood, grabs a rock, slices with the rock, and as the Aramaic says, she leaned in, or she preceded to. And the Aramaic and the Targum Yonatan explain that she did a complete ritual. And think about it, if you're a Ger Tzedek woman, whether you are literally or you know one to relate to, can you not see a Ger woman doing this? If there's one trait I see with Gerim, it's that if they're going to do a mitzvah, they're going to do it right. So she doesn't want to be caught 20 years later saying, well, son, I don't really know if you're kosher because, frankly, I didn't know what I was doing and I did it wrong. This Ger woman's going to do it right. And when you look at the imagery of when Hashem was talking to Moses, grabbing the snake by the tail, river turning to blood, bringing the sarat, the saras to the bosom, and removing the saras from, all these things. The Mazal is going there. And she knew what to do. Her name has it. Rock, Sur, Pat, Mouth. Zipporah. She did her name read right on the spot. And she knew what to do. That was her time to shine. So if you're the Yosef ben Avraham program, there's going to be a day when you say, Yosef ben Avraham. And you're going to know what to do. If your name is the Moshe ben Moshe program, one day you're going to be walking and say, Moshe ben Moshe, that's it. And you're going to do it. Whatever it is. My name is David Pesach ben Leba Cohen. One day I'm going to walk on the street and say, oh wow, David Pesach ben Leba Cohen, I know what to do. And you'll do it. That's the beauty of the prophecy of the name. So she completed an entire ritual on the spot, diving in, sacrificing himself. And she did the most random, archaic part of the mitzvah, mitzitza, sterilization. And that's what reaches the feet. When you do it, you are going to spit it out. When a snake bites you, you do the same thing. You bite it out and you spit out the blood. Reaches the feet as if to say, ugh, here, done. Throws the foreskin to the feet too and to say, done. How's that for an intimidating woman? Getting the job done. Moses is stunned. And that is equivalent to the entire Torah. Circumcision is the whole Torah. Moses gave the whole Torah. That is it 101. Now, again, we will review this in this class. The point is, Noah, naked, wine. Moses, over there. Joseph repairs Noah. With the wine, he held himself back and didn't reveal. Pinchas is a reincarnation of Joseph and Noah, meaning containing sparks of them both, because over the matters of the breast, and he held himself back. Pinchas' name is thus spelled Noah and Joseph in the letters Pinchas. And Pinchas is the vessel that contains the messianic redemption by containing Moses and David. Well, background information on Gilgulim. Idea here is that where Noah messed up, Moses took it one step closer, and the messianic tandem in the end fixes it. The repair of the mouth of Moses, that Elijah is returned in the end of days to translate Torah, speak for Moses, such as that when Moses says, Hashem, send who you're going to send, it's a way of sending, my mouth is not good for this, send Elijah. God's saying, I don't want to, I want your mouth to work. Moses says, my mouth is kosher and holy and pure. I don't do those things. I have uncircumcised lips. Hear what I just said. Uncircumcised lips. You don't actually want me to do the mitzvah sterilization, do you? The answer was, yeah. And you didn't do it. And you delayed in circumcising the kid. And in fact, if we're just going to continue talking about this, let's go all the way. What was the circumcision over? An argument between Jethro and Moses. Does a child born of a Ger Tzedek woman and a Jewish man, does that child need circumcision? Jethro says yes, Moses says no. In fact, the Ger Tzedek in relationship to Jews can be akin to the entire Torah through a riddle. What do you do with a Ger Tzedek woman and a Jew? It's happened before. The idea is with a Yafato, our captive of war, where Pinchas was there, Gera, right? This is for you. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Gemara explains that marriage is allowed. We don't paskin that way. It's forbidden. It hasn't been done probably in 3,000 years. They got very angry in the Talmud to even suggest it, but it has happened before. The Ger Tzedek woman becomes like a surrogate mother spiritually. It's maybe been done, twice in history? It's one of those weird things like para, duma, red heifer, where it's not done, illogical, in face of everything we know. But yet we have in Bamidbar the Yafet Toar, captive of war woman, who remains a virgin, not violated by a man, and she's captured this and that, this requirement. The man takes her. The ins and outs of that law, not particular to this discussion, but it's one of those things. And Zipporah is one of those women. And Moses is one of those guys. And they had kids. And Moses loses that battle. He does not want to do it because what are the Jewish people going to say? What is the world going to say? What happens when Gerim hear that and this, that, and the other thing? This is one of the ideas. Harsh on Israel like thorns or Gerim. Why? Because who wants to deal with these issues? By the way, the word for thorns is the same as saras. That's a Maral of Prague and Rashi that say that. So the problem is not so much the people and the traits, but halachically. These two nations hate each other sometimes in history, love each other, sometimes they want to marry, sometimes they don't. The fact is, what do we do? Moses doesn't want to answer it, but guess what happens with Pinchas and Zimri and Cosby? Pinchas rises up and answers and says, Moses, you don't remember the halacha, I do. He kills them, and Pinchas is rewarded with the covenant of peace. Okay. That's the Haftorah imagery. That's the basis of the Parsha. Let's get into the Zohar. Are we good so far? I know it's a little bit all over the place. I'm aware of that. But are we good? It's a little, it's a little everywhere, but let's keep going. Okay. In the Zohar, really fascinating topics. I'm going to fly through this because I want to really get to the article. It talks about the idea of drawing wisdom down into our beings and vessels and world. That's called song. Thus, when King David sang songs of Tehillim, or Solomon's Song of Songs, that is drawing wisdom down. When you engage in song, you are pulling wisdom down. Okay. And it's light as opposed to splendor. Perek Shira also. Splendor is the Torah. The Torah is stories and stories and stories. Whether they happen is irrelevant. It's told over in stories. But the Zohar says there's a level above the story. The life lesson and wisdom. It's not as appealing. Thus, when you put the wisdom in the story of the Torah, like Mitzitza, That's where it really shines. Okay, I'll give you an example. If you just say circumcision comes with sterilization because it's dangerous to give a baby a circumcision in the desert, they could die. Therefore, there's an ancient practice of sterilization, and people back then knew it. So they did something called metzitza. Is that interesting? You want to hear Torah that way? This is a ritual we do because there used to be an idolatrous practice done, and we don't do that, so therefore we have this law. But what if you say, okay, hey, you know what Zipporah did? She read something to the feet, and there was the blood, and then there was the Metzitza story, and then the whole thing of Moses, and the snake was the Yetzer Hara, yada, yada, yada. A little more interesting, isn't it? So there's a place for Zohar. But you need the wisdom and light of life lessons and the tree of life and growth and experience and the program that you call yourself. And you really don't matter, and you're too spiritual to matter, and you're inconsequential. Because who's going to listen to you? But then you read the Torah, you say, hey, I know the answer to that. And you put it in. Now you're answering divine wisdom. So let's say there's 20 rabbis over thousands of years that answered the question, and you understand what each of them said. That's when Torah comes to life. Then it becomes a three-dimensional model and not a static model. But that light never changed. Thus, when you sing it, when you're jovial about it, bechedva about it, Eliza. Joe, here's a new word for you. Eliza. And the word is a bit controversial what I'm going to say. I'm saying it for a reason. All right? We all know the word gay. And I'm not talking that. I'm talking joyously gay. But I'm using the word gay on purpose. Gay is a joy like innocence. Right? When little kids are doing shtuyot, they're kind of gay, right? And I mean that joyous. The joyous gay and giddy and giggling, and they're happy and they're playing. And that's innocence. That is the innocence of youth. Again, we're using that word to imply joy. Because this is what King David talks about in Tehillim. In Tehillim, yeshivish mentality, Jewish shtick, before, let's say, the taint of sin. Yeshivish is jovial, it's gay. It's, mamish gewaltig, mamish. It's fun, it's just, that's the word. It's not quite chedva. The word is gay. Like, to be joyous and gay. It's the perfect word to describe that kind of joy. The word is Eliza. Right? Ayin, lamed, yud, zayin, hey. Know that word. It's not exactly chedva. Chedva is like supreme fun, joy, like deep fun. Like a roller coaster at Kings Island is chedva. Eliza is 3 a.m. making yeshivish jokes about chetzi nezek knas and reshus harabim. According to just funny. It's funny. It's a funny thing. So the idea is, how did I get talking about that? Lost my train of thought. So that's it. When the song of wisdom is when you have fun with the Torah. Have fun. Open your mind. Open your heart and laugh. Sing a song. Let out the wisdom. Right? I mean, it'd be kind of crude about it. This whole discussion's a bit crude, but hey, we're talking about circumcision this week. Okay? When you talk about Metzitza with Zipporah, and you're explaining how she saved the world with Moses and the Torah, let it out. Sing a song. Have fun with it. It's an off topic. It's abstract. It's uncomfortable. So if it's uncomfortable, let it just sing it. Don't say it. Sing it. Let it be a niggin to it. Niggin's like a tune. Be yeshivish. Oh, that's right. Yeshivish is that kind of thing. Right? In the yeshiva world, obviously it's a holy domain. It's in a base medrash. So the jokes in yeshiva, you've never heard it. It's funny. It's innocent. It's that Eliza. Let's stop using the English word and call it Eliza. Okay? In the yeshiva, you'll see it's very funny. It's innocence. It's like you see a guy eating, let's say, one slice of bread, and he saves the other slice. One guy would say, you mamish were saving one slice because you're machmir on pekuach nefesh on stale bread. And therefore, you wanted to give truma, but this is not a makom deraisa, so you're doing a delefila rabbanin for tomorrow's lunch. Right? It's funny. It's just funny. So the funniest part about it is real Torah can come out of that. When you're explaining Torah, let it be fun. Let it be of the heart and not of the mind. You with me? This is a theme. That kind of Torah, when you're really in your element, that is shira, song, drawing wisdom, letting the light flow into the Zohar, which is, the story form, and you say, oh, I get it. I remember last week I was at Kings Island, and there was a guy, and he was holding an ice cream cone upside down. I bet you he was holding the Machmir Shita of Rebbe Chia, as according to Tosfos Bava Kama. It's jovial. It's pointless, but it's still Torah. It's not pointless. It's seeing the far outsides of Torah. That's where the real revelation comes. That's where it's prophetic that it comes to you, and not just your wisdom. And we're going to talk about Chetzi Nezek Nas in the Rishus Harabim. If you're over Darlad Arba almost in the Rishus Harabim, it's true, but nobody wants to hear a monologue and just a deep tone, and let it out. Have some Eliza. Joe, you got that word? Eliza. Join that with Chedva. That whole concept is David in Psalms, Solomon in Song of Songs. That is song, that is wisdom, that is light coming into our world. The Zohar goes on about Ezekiel. Was Ezekiel wrong in revealing the secrets? Was he wrong? They say, and end up saying, no, he's not, because he was a prophet, and even though those that know don't say, and those that don't say, no. Ayin Lamed Yud Zayin Hey. Aliza. Okay. So in the end, Ezekiel was supposed to reveal the secrets of the third temple, and that is one of the biggest revelations of all time, because it contains God's storehouse. They said, how could he do it? In the end, he was right. They say, Chacham Adif Menavi. The wise man is preferable to the prophet. Now, two things come of that. How do you know if it's a prophecy? How do you know if it's wisdom? If you have to think before you say it, that's wisdom. And you're probably better off not to say it. If it just comes out, or you have to reveal it, that's prophetic, and go with it. And the idea that wisdom is preferable, it's because if somebody says something, you want to know if it was wisdom or prophecy, i.e., is it absolutely true and from God? Did that person think, contemplate, and speak, or did it just come out? If it just came out, it's mazal. That's like the first words that come out of a woman's mouth. It's mazal. You have to take it, shine new light on it if it doesn't make sense, meaning put it in context, and it cannot be thrown away. That is prophetic. Ruach HaKodesh, inspiration. If it's wisdom, and they're trying to think of a cute way of saying it, or insulting, or being a little bit harsh, it's wisdom, and it's probably not worth a dime. Okay. Interesting thing in the Zohar, just a little tidbit here, they say that the Beis HaMikdash fills the world, and the Holy of Holies is in the Galil, and this was the secret of why there was not the need for the temple in the Galil in times of Yervam ben Nevat, the evil aspect of the northern kingdom. The idea is there's a revelation of the temple in the north. I thought that was interesting. Another interesting thing, Shabbos is the concept of all sevens and 70s. And they say that the Mashiach is due in our time, even this year. We're in 5774. Notice the 70 of 74. That by that way of thinking, we could start the prophetic times in the Zohar. They think it's this decade. It could be that the light of day, I did a math equation, right? 12 divided by 10 times 4. That's the equation. And it should be the light of day coming out soon. So it could be any time now we can see a revelation. If things are going to get interesting in the world, and we are in those 70 time period, let's hope we don't have to wait till 5874. Okay, last point of the Zohar. This is major. 3 houses. Remember in the verse in the Torah that 3 houses, Hashem made for them houses in regards to Shifra and Puah, Miriam and Yocheved. The Zohar says those three houses are the house of the Cohen, Amram, Levi, Yocheved, and the kingdom of David through Miriam. And we know that David comes from Miriam. Okay, that's all we got for the introduction. How are you guys doing? It's a bit rapid fire. It's a bit all over the place. We good? All right. All right. Okay. Moses' SoulMazal name read. Yes, I had the chutzpah to do Moses' name on Shabbos. Why? Because it's in the Parsha. Moses is placed in the river. Batia, the daughter of Paro, pulls him out. And by the way, we might go over time limit today. Just be aware of that. Not sure, but if we do, I'm going to keep going. And she says, Meshisihu, I drew him out of the water. Now look at the name. Memshin, Moshe, Meshisihu. So far, so good. The Yud can be dropped. Meshi. Where the Taf, where is it? And then you have the Hey. Moses has the Hey. And we lose the Vav, meaning him, grammatically. Why did Batia leave off the Taf of Shet? Meshetihu. Meaning from the one that was placed in the river. Shet means placed. The Arizal says Moses is a reincarnation of Shet. Now again, I want to define one quick thing here. Reincarnation doesn't mean that Shet, his being was reincarnated into Moshe. Right? We're talking about Seth, the son of Adam, Shet. Reincarnation is either portions of soul, or if you, for a really gross example, you are a mailman, and you steal people's mail, but everything else about you is righteous, and the God in the Torah called you God's mailman, and David Katz comes along and really perfects the art of giving mail. That's what I do best. I give mail. Okay? So if I notice my surroundings, I say, man, I'm just like the mailman of God. I'm just like him. My world of Mazal mimics his. I recognize the types of characters, and I perfect it. I get a spark of that action in my being. It's incorporated in me. I effectively am a Gilgal of that guy, a reincarnation. This is how Pinchas is a reincarnation of Joseph, Joseph of Noah. This is probably the most authentic definition of reincarnation. So again, I'm just totally making this up, but just for example, let's say Abraham is Abraham, and he does one big sin, okay? Let's say it's the sin of making yeshiva guys go fight war, and let's say Isaac, he particularly didn't make yeshiva guys go to war. He bought them all art scroll chumashes. Yitzchak gets a spark of Abraham. You would say that Isaac is a reincarnation of Abraham. That is not a true story. There was no art scroll chumash. But when you look in the Torah and you read the Kabbalistic writings, when you see Gilgal, reincarnation, it means that person perfected a blemish in somebody else, and they embodied, imbued, and enlivened that thing. They became the person itself, incorporated into their being. Bit complicated, but think about it. So Moses now is a reincarnation of Seth. Yet we know also Shem. So what Batia does is she realizes Shet means placed. And Shem can be read as Sam. Sin mem. Like Samoto, place him. So she changes the name to Sam. Everyone hear me? We have a one. If she changes the word without connotation, mem is the trigger, like mispalel, he prayed. Missam, he was placed. Okay? The mem and the shin, from right to left, if you read it left to right, hey, shin, mem, it spells Hashem, but it also means Hassam, placed. So therefore, what Batia does is, she changes the name to be a more powerful name. He was placed in the river, but if you change the taf to a mem, as in placed, then you don't lose any of the connotation. You gain a much more powerful name. You express the Gilgal of Shet and of Shem, and Hashem is the driving power in Moses. It just makes it incredible. Hashem means the name. Meshisihu, I drew him from the water, means my name of Tohu, of power. And Shem means name. It's one strong version of the name. Okay. Zipporah, as I mentioned, her name means rock in mouth, which is going to be her salvation with the circumcision. Moses sins with the circumcision. He doesn't go and do Metzitza. He doesn't want to be involved. He doesn't think the baby needs circumcision. If he doesn't do this, the Torah is not going to be given. He is going to be held accountable. He might die. Zipporah recognizes the Mazal. She does the act, saves Moses. But by now, Moses, there's a avon, a residue of sin. It allows for the golden calf to erupt. He's going to hit the rock, right? For one lack of merit in one rock, he sins with another. Doesn't get to Israel, but at the end of his life, he's given perfect understanding. Nun Shari Bina, 50 gates of understanding. He's able to enter Jerusalem and Israel above. He goes up to the mountain above. But in this domain below, he's not allowed. That's the story of Moses. Had he used his mouth, he would have told the Torah at Sinai from his mouth, no need to go to heaven, no golden calf, no waiting around. Go directly to Israel, build a temple. But because there was a sin with the mouth, he goes up, there's a golden calf. Moses' mouth got him in trouble in his life. The Torah was given. Moses will wait till the end of days to sing that song, Az Yashir Moshe. Then in those days, Moses will sing in the Messianic redemption when his soul is embedded in Mashiach ben Yosef and David. Pinchas and David. When Zipporah makes the circumcision is paramount to the entire Torah. Moses now learns the entire Torah. And it's probably not the first time. Moses did a lot of things that were entire Torah material. Sinai itself. But at that moment, he learned everything. Why didn't he want to go down? The mouth that only ate and drank and spoke kosher, you're going to ask me to do that? That level of arrogance is what burned him. And he was meant to stand in the fire. Moses is hinted at in Genesis. Should man live to be 120? And Rashi's commentary says, and if he were to be fire, spiritual, all the more so he'd be arrogant. Moses was built to stand in the fire. The burning bush was Moses in the fire, so to speak. The flame of the sword that turns is being able to deal with the fire of the Ger Tzedek women. Ish is fire with a yud. Isha, fire with a hey. Man and woman is fire with God, yud and hey. Moses' life is defined by women, that understanding, that Zipporah element, the idea to give a prophetic name to their child, to give the ritual of circumcision, to know what is a prophetic response or a wise response, to sing song, to not give stories without meaning, to take upon the Shabbat, to wish to witness the Beit HaMikdash like Chana, to reveal secrets of God if God says so, to live a life of trouble and travail, tsar, because they're accustomed to troubles. It says by Chava, by Eve, Hashem will increase her suffering with birth. It doesn't say he created suffering. Women just suffer. It's a von. Women can handle the pain because they know what pain is. So Hashem increased it with the childbirth. All the things that we talked about. Moses is given that as his chinuch, his education. They are his guidance counselors, teaching him what it is to be a woman, What is the tzaddik warrior woman in the Ger Tzedek in Sephora leaning in with the blood and throwing? I mean, who does that? A woman that wants to circumcise her child will do it. Don't stand in front of a mom and her cubs. The self-sacrifice of keeping Shabbat. The self-sacrifice of dipping into the river. The customs that came upon Egypt. To be a ger. Even amongst the controversy that was in Egypt over it. To take the kid and raise him up. And teach him what it is to stand in fire. Moses was prepared to be burnt down at the time of the circumcision. Right? The wrath of Hashem upon him. Hashem reduced him to ashes. He saw the burning bush burn. He wanted someone else to go do the mission. For better or for worse, he had his ups and downs, but this man went through fire. That is his thing. And in the end of days, there will be a remainder of people called the Gerim. The last remnant of society that wants fire. Moses' soul is destined to return in the end of days. And to do what? Conquer the riddle and the messianic redemption. What do we do with the Ger Tzedek issue? And it functions in almost every ounce of Torah. Moses his time starts in the river. He's placed there by God. If you read, you know the word where Moses says he has uncircumcised lips. And God says, who made for you this and that, and deaf, dumb, blind, this? Read it carefully. You can say, who placed you he who placed you as a mouth for man? Or was it to make you deaf, sighted, blind, or dumb? When it says me, Shem, who places? You can understand the word place is Moses in the river. Meshisihu. He who was placed there. You read through the Parashah in the Hebrew where it says placed or a name. Moses is called by slang here, he who was placed. And that's the beginning of his life. He was simply placed there. Like any ger. An intellect, seichel, is a ger in this world. The intellect was placed here by God. Why does the ger go through idolatry? God places him there. Why am I in one country and I'm not from there? God placed you there. Moses is the ger. We learn everything about gerim from Moses. Read last year's article. His kid's name is Gershom, ger there, or placed ger. He's sitting on the well learning Torah. Sephora comes, and what does he do? He stands up. He stands up from the well. He teaches you derech eretz. Everything Moses did. We can see that's what a ger would do. The way God talks to him. The way God placed him. In this parsha, everything Moses does is the Torah of the ger. Yocheved raises him. She puts him through the fire program. He never forgets his upbringing. Ever. Imagine that. Never forgets. He knows the fire of Yocheved, his mother. Then he goes over to Batia, the daughter of Pharaoh. She puts him through the left side of the tree of life. Gevurah. Tremendous warriorship. So Batia had a Naaman moment. She had her Naaman moment. Joseph introduced the circumcision, and the women were introduced the Egyptian women to Gerim. Why are the Jews, that time the Noahites, persecuted in Egypt? What are you going to do? Turn Egyptian society into a bunch of Gerim? So now he graduates from Batia. She teaches him how to be a proper Ger Tzedek. Then he meets the warrior woman of all time, Sephora. And eventually he divorces Sephora because he can't face it. So what does he do? He divorces her, hoping the Torah of the get will teach me more than the Torah of the ketubah. He wants to divorce her so he'll know her better in the aftermath. And he loses Israel over it. And Miriam says, what are you doing? That's really bad. And God says, Miriam, it's like you spit on me. And Moses told, go heal her now. He says, Kel na rafanallah. Please, God, heal her now. How about a long prayer, if you knew what she was talking about? Miriam was right. Just like she was right about Amram having more kids, i.e. Moses. Moses loses the land over this whole thing, hitting the rock. There's the Lashon Hara. Should have been married. You need to be married. He divorced her. Because why? Didn't want to deal with the Ger Tzedek issue. So the daughters of Slavchat, 5 wise daughters, they say, we inherited land to Israel. If you marry one of us, you will get the portion of land. Moses says, no. I'm going to try through the left side, like Bactia, my mother raised me basically, and that through the might of the left, even after divorce or marriage, then I'll get it. That he did not step up to be a man in face of this type of woman. Zipporah knew Moses, the man, as in her husband. She wasn't impressed by bells and whistles at Sinai. She still wants to know, is he going to take out the garbage tomorrow morning? And Moses did not step it up. In the time with Jethro and Moses, they become the best of mates discussing Ger Tzedek issues. Jethro leaves the court of Pharaoh. He marries Zipporah. And they discuss, the future, what is going to be the Ger. So when Jethro comes to help out, Jethro is right on the money. And that was their issue. What do we do with Ger kids in this situation? And it's a question which kid it was. But it really doesn't matter. One was circumcised, one wasn't. Until Zipporah did it. These issues will all be resolved in the times of the Messiah. It says in the Zohar, Moshe v'train Mashiach, Moses and the 2 Messiahs, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef. 2 different roles or elements of the redemption, and the soul of Moses is placed amongst them. In fact, every generation, Moses' soul is reincarnated amongst the scholars in order to repair the Erev Rav. That kind of soul is called Melech Mashiach. The King Messiah, the production of, let's say, Messianic Torah, so that it's all gathered into the Yechida, the highest level of soul that protects the redemption process. And we have the proper portfolio of these women around Moses. And the Mashiach program is raised by Ger Tzedek women in the Zohar. It says that the nurturing of a Ger Tzedek woman on Mashiach, that's where it comes from in the Kan Sapor, the bird's nest above. Very Kabbalistic literature. But we see that Moses was in like a bird's nest. Like a little reed, basket in the river. That's like a bird's nest. And the Ger Tzedek women nurtured him. And Malchus, of the river, the kingship, is akin to the mouth. So it's all about the mouth of Moses, learning to speak. And he needed to do this act of circumcision. He didn't realize that's part of the job. He's saying Elijah will do it. He's the circumcision guy, the chair of Elijah. Let him do it. Moses was to do it all. And he deferred. Yocheved gets the process going. Along comes Bati, as we said, found him in the river. She puts him through the program. Zipporah does the action of the circumcision. The entire story of Moses is laid out. Now, what did Zipporah do? We touched upon this earlier. Moses and Zipporah get in a fight. The fight has to do ultimately with resolving the Ger Tzedek, the essence of David, where he comes from. the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination of the world that David takes out. Moses is basically dealing with the David issue. Now, there's going to be a David later on. Moses is the Mashiach and outside the land, says King David, and David is the Mashiach in the land. Joshua is where you cross over, and Pinchas contains all elements. So the Messianic story is kind of peppered everywhere. And the David element is the cherry on top that Moses is being asked to deal with now. Moses could have been that Joshua, Pinchas, David, Moses. But the Yetzer Hara, when it doesn't want to do it, when it's out of character and kind of foolish, this is the Yetzer Hara of Moses dealing with the Ger Tzedek. He is the rabbi, and he doesn't want to go there. So it comes out like, leave me alone, one of those things. And Zipporah doesn't want to leave alone. She wants the answer. She wants to go to Israel, build a temple, like every other Ger on the planet. But she doesn't want to go to Sinai and convert just to appease. You know what? If she did, her father wouldn't, Jethro. So she's not. In fact, she arrives with Jethro. So they're pushing Moses into the corner. Moses, you need to deal with this. Pinchas eventually did. Remember that. Pinchas is a reincarnation of the same type with Jethro. And he's a living offspring. So Jethro goes up with Pinchas in the end. Joshua marries Rachav, the Ger Tzedek woman also. Everyone's involved. Solomon, and in his story, this is the Messianic story. Called the red heifer of the redemption. Zipporah sees the anger coming out of Moses. We have anger issues with Moses a couple times in the Torah. Hitting the rock. The Novelli of Aaron, he didn't understand. Darish, the middle of the Torah. And now, and Zipporah, by the extreme animation of Moses, she says, I get it. It's kind of a graphic image, but I get it. And she does the SoulMazal on her name, Sor Peh, does the act. And she leans in, saying, this is for my husband. Does it, spits it out and throws it. Have you ever seen a warrior woman like that? That is the Ger Tzedek, and that is Yocheved, and that is Batya, and that is every Ger woman that ever lived. That is total outright passion to get it done for God. Moses was born with that, and he can handle it. David takes the baton and runs with it. Michal, step aside. Well, David, you're wrong. We're the woman. We influenced you. David said, I understand you. I can handle the fire and I can give the fire. Just like Zipporah subdued her evil inclination, so does David. Moses didn't want to deal with it. In fact, Moses was going to be killed by his until Zipporah stopped it and held it back. The evil inclination and the Messiah program, that is what this is about of righteousness. And that's Moses' name read. What is a man of 120 years? Then the Yetzer takes him. But David comes along and represents the victory. That's embedded in Ruth, the final righteous woman. Right? The story that comes from Miriam. And then David is named David. Ruth is named Ruth because she saturates. That's the name's meaning. Ruth is saturation. David saturates Hashem with song. That's the wisdom. David studied the wisdom of women. He says, I am a ger. Solomon didn't quite get it right. He thinks by being around 1,000 women, he'll get it. David doesn't build the temple. He gets nachas from Solomon's building the temple. Ultimately, David's the guy. And he will come latent with the soul of Moses. And what did David deal with all his life? Blood and fetuses. Of stillborns and nida. If there's that one element missing in Moses, it's the David program. Therefore, David becomes a consciousness when Moses loses the kingdom. But then the soul of Moses comes and helps teach David the Torah. How? Gilgulim. Reincarnations of the soul types. When Adam made the sin of the same type, of not really doing what Hashem wanted, Eve then has to figure out what to do. She gives him the apple. And you say, oh, how could you do that? Just like Zipporah is called an idolater. No. By Eve's actions, the whole Torah is the repair of Adam. She did the perfect kind of controlled demolition to bring the rectification. Moses marries Zipporah, says the Midrash, to repair Adam and Eve. Thus, by Zipporah's action, not only do we learn circumcision in history, the way that the women, the midwives, would do it in Egypt, and all through all of time, she actually teaches the whole Torah. Actually teaches the whole Torah. That when she read the Mazal of Moses, we learn Mazal, the emanation of God through divine providence. Moses was speaking Mazal by his actions, and she read it. And the highest level of speak Mazal is in your mind when your Mazal speaks. It's called the fulfillment of a vow. We make vows all day long. And King David says, how do you beat the Yetzer, the evil inclination? How do you sit in the confines of your home like a temple and bring down the wars that never even start? Moses was neglecting the vow of circumcising the child. When you hear in your mind the vow, when you make vows in silent speech, from that upper world of Jerusalem called Bina, understanding. When you secure those vows and you fulfill them, like a ger taking on the commandments, that's how the redemption comes, says King David in Psalm 61. You conquer the land, you conquer your enemies, you gain every blessing when you fulfill the vow. Moses did not fulfill the vow. Zipporah fulfilled the vow. I will circumcise my child right. And she did. Under extreme scenario. When your mom says, clean up your crumbs, and you say, okay, I will. You have to do it. You made a vow. Even if you don't answer out loud, you made a vow. When you hear yourself, recognizing yourself, making those vows, fulfill them. That's what the ger said a woman brought upon the soul of David. When she does the ritual, she is fulfilling a vow to God. When Eve gave the fruit, she is fulfilling a vow. She saw the fruit was good, saying, it's good for eating. She fulfilled the vow. What could she do? The irony is, was it really the tree of knowledge of good and evil or the tree of life? Adam did not fulfill his vow. The whole Torah comes from the rectification of these things. I'll tell you where the idea came from. It was a personal anecdote. As I was learning on Shabbos, she reached it to his feet and the Zipporah. I said, I've never heard a good answer of this. Never. I looked at every book I own. And I looked at my mother's visiting with the kids, and I said, I bet a woman can answer this. This needs Bina. And I am certainly not the best at Bina. Understanding. I asked the question, and the first words out, she was sterilizing the child. Now, if you want to hear the mazal in this, my mother's job for a living is to sell sterilizers. So at first I thought, that's stupid. Like any man would. And I thought, wait, whoa. This might be onto something. And I said, don't call it sterilizer. Call it metzitza. And I thought, could this be? Zipporah was doing metzitza? The most random element of Torah in the world? You brought that light, the wisdom of daily life lesson, the vow, things we hear. Just say sterilizer. Okay, sterilizer. But bring it into the Zohar. Bring it into the story, the splendor. Make the story shine. Your life is boring. Who are you? You're nobody. But in the Torah, we're all looking, all eyes on Zipporah. Can we make her shine? On Twitter nowadays, we all want to shine. Who are you? Maybe we'll get some followers on Twitter, but it's not going anywhere. Even Hollywood. But Zipporah is timeless. If we can make her shine with singing the song of Zipporah, who was reincarnated into Devorah, i.e. singing the song of Devorah, Shirat Devorah, that's eternal. We can all appreciate that. With that, we can see God in motion. Moses failed to see that and he divorced her. He didn't recognize the bringing it into the Zohar. When I say Zohar, I'm talking the splendor of life. He divorced her because he saw the end of it. He thought, I'll bring the splendor and the divorce bill. All the time making the map, but avoiding the territory. He didn't realize that herself was that mazal, that vow. And he made a vow when he married her. That's how dumb the Yetzer Hara evil inclination gets. I'm so holy, I don't even learn Torah. What do you mean? There's no such thing. I'm so hungry, I'm not even going to eat. Eat something. I want Bina so much, I'm going to learn it from the divorce bill. What are you talking about? David's the opposite. Most people are kind of like these masochists that way. David says, I learned Bina so much, I'm going to learn from Avishag before I die. They say, huh? That's weird. He says, what do you mean it's weird? What else would I do? That's the thing. It's a vow. It's just fulfilling what you set out to do. Accomplishing your goals and dreams. That's the messianic element. That's what's nurturing Moses. And by looking at Moses' life in this way, we can really see that shine. Even if it's in the negative. It's the gerim around that David says, I am a ger. Moses, we say he was placed as a ger. He was a ger there. I was placed as a ger. David says, I am a ger. The Messiah program is, whether it be the Mashiach, in the Aramaic it's the Mashiach, David, Moses, Joseph, Shem, Enoch, and Abraham. All of the types of archetype souls that combine. That Melech Mashiach program, that what we call Melech Mashiach, the King Messiah, those souls that reveal to us. Well, perhaps nobody revealed more than Moses. Don't forget, there's always the four craftsmen. Mashiach ben David and Yosef and Elijah and the righteous priest. Righteous priest, Shem. Shem, reincarnate of Moses. When they say that David and Moses, the souls are really one and the same. And again, David comes from Ruth, the further extension of the women. We're just going around in circles at this point. I think everyone sees the main thrust of this article. The righteous Ger Tzedek women, and that warrior mentality that became David, that was put upon Moses. That's what this is about. The fulfilling of the vow, warrior woman, getting the job done, land of Israel, just like the daughters of Slafchad, who wanted the land of Israel. And with the power of the women coming out of the splitting of the Red Sea, Miriam took drum in hand. Drum is the gematria Sitra Achra. The women repel the Sitra Achra, both are on the proverbial left side. And the women dispel it. And what Moses reveals is not what they think or why they think it. That's a map. That's a divorce bill. Literally and figuratively. With the support of Moses, we see how does the Ger Tzedek think. She thinks, get the ritual and do it. It's the territory and face of the map. She was being herself. The Torah captures the moment, and we say, wow, what does it mean that she reached for the feet? They don't even think she's being herself. She threw it and spit it there. Moses' job was to be himself. Don't animate the mazel. Speak it. Sing it. Be Eliza with it. He took himself too seriously. You rebels, I'll bring water from you. Hits the rock, it's done. David never took himself seriously. He took God seriously. If that means being fire, so be it. By that, David fulfilled all of his vows. But Hashem said, I'm not going to let you build the temple. That will come by your son, and I'm fulfilling a vow to you, David. And the Zohar made very clear that the essence of David is the light of wisdom that is sung as the mazel brings wisdom down by the fulfillment of a vow. You want to know what the Messiah program is? And what it is to be the place is a ger, I'm a ger, this and that, and the heat and the fire and the knife and the stone. What's it all about? Parashas Shemot is the illumination of women in history who made and kept their vows. And even if you're as great as Moses and you don't do that, your life could be in danger. And one man stood erect and achieved that. And he came out of the missing woman of the story, Ruth. She who was called in the name of saturation of God through praise and song, which was no better than anyone in history than King David. And David came from the house of Miriam, the daughter of Yocheved. And the story that explains the making of the Messiah. Thank you very much. Have a great week. See you all next time.